And hello again, and here we are for part 3 of my new Kawasaki Z1000A1 project. Today's a bit damp out there, so I can't really wheel anything outside, so in here it's just very overcrowded, but we'll do what we can. So in the last video about this project, it was a case of 1 step forward and 2 steps back, because although I'd spent a lot of money, well over £1,000, there were various problems trying to fit those new parts to the old Kawasaki frame, which wasn't too unexpected. But yeah, one thing I did was I bought this with a bit of a risk. This is the swing arm from a Kawasaki Z1000RS. It's monoshocked, but I thought that wouldn't be a problem. We can convert it to twin shock quite easily, and hopefully if it fits, then it means the wheel and brakes and so on, spindles, also from a Z900RS would also fit, and it would look very sort of factory, which was the look I was going for. But sadly, as I explained in last video, the design of this swing arm means that it's very difficult to narrow this area of the pivot bolt, so just wouldn't fit. It's about 25mm too wide. Can't reduce this by 25mm, maybe only 7mm, and I don't want to go down the road of widening the frame, which I did on my 1170, because it's time consuming, difficult and expensive. So what to do? Well, there is a rather obvious solution, which is to use one of these swing arms, which is from a Kawasaki ZRX 1200. I've used it here on the Mark II project, and I've also used the same swing arm on my 1170 project, and it's not a problem. I mean, it's a beautiful swing arm, very well made, suits the retro look of the bike, and importantly, the design means that it's quite easy to narrow this pivot area here, so you can fit it to an old Kawasaki frame. So why don't I just go and buy one of these? Well, because it's lazy. I mean, I've used it twice already, and using it 3 times on 3 different Zs seems a bit lazy to me. I want to do something a bit different, if possible. Now, obviously, if I look at alternatives and I can't find anything I really like, I'll just go out and buy one of these, and away we go. But in the meantime, there are still some quite interesting options out there to look into. And one of those options is in this box here, which has just arrived today. So let's get it open and see what I bought. Oh, and here it is. Now, this is quite a cheap version of what I was looking at. This only cost me £50, which is pretty amazing for such a well-made bit of kit. It comes complete with spindle, bearings, although of course we'll change them if need be, and also the adjuster blocks here, which we also need. So, what is it? Well, it's a rather beefy swing arm from, as it might say there, an XGR 1300. And I like these because A, they're pretty well made, twin shock of course, and if you look at the front here, the pivot area here, these ends come out quite a long way from the twin spars, unlike that on the Kawasaki Z900RS that I tried. So hopefully this might fit in the frame, maybe with a little bit of work to machine these down a bit. Then we have to counterbore it to make room for the standard bearings, but that's okay, we can do that. Now, one reason why I wouldn't necessarily use one of these is because it's silver, and I don't want to fit a polished or silver swing arm to the frame, because I think that looks very sort of 80s, 90s Street Fighter look, which I'm not too keen on. However, what we can do with this one is get it hard anodized black, cerakoted black, or gold or pink or whatever, or even just get it powder coated, and there's all sorts of options. And I think if I did that, it would look a lot more part of the bike than just sort of standing out, being all different from a 70s bike. Now, it's a resto mod, I know, but I do want to make the bike look, how would you say it? I want it to look all of a piece. I don't want one particular part jumping out and you saying, oh, look at that, that's from an XGR, that's sort of showing off a little bit. I want it all to look as if it belongs. Now, that's a pretty nice swing arm all by itself, but it's a bit boring, isn't it? It's a bit kind of what you expect me to fit. So I have been thinking about how we can change this. Hey, it's really raining now, you can hear it outside, no doubt, even with my little directional microphone. So what can we do with this swing arm to make it a bit special, to make it look a little bit different? And this is what I do a lot of. I think about things and I plan things and look into how things can be modified. And I have found, well, I've known about a tuning shop in Japan for a long time. I saw them racing at Daytona about 20 years ago. And they are a company called Over Racing. And they make all kinds of cool stuff, including frames and alloy swing arms. And I'll put up a picture now of a swing arm that I've seen that I really like. Even though the colour isn't quite what I wanted, I'd probably just go and get that, powder coated black or anodised black. So here it is. And as you can see, it's a pretty chunky swing arm, almost like this actually, but it's got a real cool underbrace. So I thought to myself, well, why can't we do the same thing with this? I have, with the help of Jeff, made a billet alloy swing arm before for my 131 my 131 road bike, and there's a whole video about how we did that I posted up not too long ago, and that was okay, but I can't really use the same methods as we used on this particular swing arm for various reasons. And the real problem I've found when I've been investigating how to do this is that the underbrace is a box section alloy like this here, and it's bent, it's curved because it has to curve in on the inside, join up with a brace here and then come round to the other side. And so what I'm not sure about at the moment is what's the best method, or even if it's possible for someone like me at home, even with help from some experts, to bend alloy box section. It seems quite difficult to me. Now I know we can bend tubing quite easily, even with a tube bender, or we can pack it full of sand, block up both ends and heat it up to cherry red, and it'll bend without crushing the tube itself. But I'm not sure that's possible with aluminium box alloys. That's something I'm currently looking into. But I have got some ideas and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this so far. So now, despite the rain outside, let's see how far this doesn't fit the frame. Okay, so I've just now measured the swing arm and of course the frame as well. And the scores on the doors, it's good news because the frame is about 235mm across. The Kawasaki Z1000RS swing arm was 260. That's about an inch or 25mm too wide. And as I say, you can't really machine it down more than about 5 or 6mm. 7mm at the absolute maximum. Whereas the XJR13 here, it's only 245mm end to end. And that's only 10mm wider than the frame. And that's great news because it means I can machine off 5mm off this end, 5mm off this end. We'll keep the swing arm central, and there's still plenty of room inside the swing arm for the standard bearings. Another good thing is that this is quite an early XJR 1300 swing arm, and I was told that the later swing arms had a bigger rear spindle. I think it went up from 20 to 28mm, the same as say an R1. But this one is the 20mm option, and that's great news because guess what? A Kawasaki Z900RS rear wheel is also 20mm, so I'm hopeful that we can fit the rear wheel from the RS in here without having too much difficulty. We don't need to make top hat spaces so the bearings fit, or widen out these slots for a bigger swing arm, and that's what I wanted. So the next job then is to take this to Jeff's and we'll knock out the bearings and get these pivot ends here machined down by about 5mm until they fit snugly in the frame. And I'll do that later on this week because I've got to go back to see Jeff later on this week because he's now got my crankshaft that I bought for the bike that arrived last week. Took it down to Jeff where he gave it a once over, and it was kind of mainly good news, but not all good news. So we're going to now go back in time to last week, and we'll be at Jeff's workshop where he looks over that swing arm and gives it his thumbs up or thumbs down. And so here we go. Yeah, seems okay. So I'm hopeful that if that's a good crank, we can use it as is. We don't need to. Oh, hang on.
No, that's just the bloody side drift on them. Bloody hell.
I can hear it from here.
Quite a fair bit of float. So this has come out of a running bike.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's not a lot, the pin fraction. Trouble is, like you say, if you I bet there's a bloody millimetre clearance on that.
Well, that implies then that we're going to have to take it apart and clean it and put it back together and weld it.
Good God, I've never known that.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
I think it said it was 20.
That's not up and down, that's side to side.
Yes, yeah. So it sounds like it needs to be pressed apart and rebuilt. It's okay. It's no problem. No rush for that. It's actually not as quite as good as we expected.
The thing is, if you start taking a mill off that and a mill off that, and then it pulls it all in, unless they're serious, unless the thrust washers are pretty
worn out. All right. Well,
I mean, there is. I mean, you've got.
I think they said it was the 26,000 miles that came out of an engine.
Yeah. The only other option is to take a measurement to that centre web and press it back together so it's a fraction over, so that when you get the tolerances right on them, it keeps everything.
Yeah, we don't want to alter the total width of it, because we've had a problem with that before, haven't we?
Well, I've put GPZ ones. I've never. They've all seemed
okay.
But I've done the GPZ ones, and I've always put the centre ones flush.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
as a datum point, but them aren't flush.
No.
Maybe the earlier ones they've.
No, well, we don't know, do we?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is.
Again, I did that other one for the 900 back to that.
It was okay.
It was
all right. Well,
spot on.
Well, we'll play it by ear. Right. So you grab your 17mm bar, ground bar.
Sometimes this tells you if it's spun.
Yeah, the crank is straight on up.
No, that's all right.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thank God for that.
So it's all
level. It's not been right. Okay. Meet the camera, so hopefully you can see now. That's a 17mm ground bar. Well, very flat. Very straight. And if that bar goes all the way through.
And it spins nicely. That.
You know the crank is straight.
Either that or the little ends are badly worn.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
Well,
at least that's some good news anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave that for the time being then. I'll decide what to do with that another day. So it's kind of half good news and half bad news, possibly bad news. Oh, and one more thing. I got a surprise package arrive this week. Didn't expect it. And here it is. And in here is a mug. This is a mug that was sent from Stuart and his partner, who came up last week to bring me the Kawasaki ZRS front end. And I think his partner noticed that I do like Kawasaki's, and I think she does something with mugs, and so she sent me this. So thank you very much, Stuart and his partner. I do appreciate that. A real surprise, and I shall use it for my cups of tea many, many times. Right, so where were we? Oh, yes. And so now we've left the garage because there's some quite noisy gardening work going on next door. So here we are in the back of my conservatory where other bikes are kept. Now, what I've got here is, the rear wheel and very loosely attached swing arm. Now, I don't yet have the correct rear spindle for the swing arm. It didn't arrive with the swing arm, but I've got an order, it's only £10, so that's not a big deal. What I'm using right now is a 20mm spindle from the Kawasaki Z1000A1 swing arm, and it's about that much too short, so obviously I can't yet, you know, sort of make this thing look sensible. But this is just kind of look to see how it goes together. Good news is there's plenty of room in the swing arm because it's made for a wider, I think it's made for a 200 or 190 rear tyre, maybe on a 6-inch rim. So there's plenty of room on here for this 180 tyre and 5.5-inch rim. So let me put it down because it's pretty awkward and quite heavy. Let me put that down. Now, the reason why I brought it here is because I'm thinking about the rear brake. Not sure you can see it from the camera there, but here I've got a bit of a deja vu moment now because I bought this brake here, this Brembo brake for the Mark II project, but it didn't fit, and we ended up having to try, I think, 4 different calipers before we found the one that worked for that particular combo of swing arm, disc and R6 wheel. So I've got here, rather dinky, one of my favourite little Brembo twin pot calipers. And so I'm hopeful that the disc on this wheel is a bit bigger than the 220 disc on the R6 wheels I'm using on the Mark II project. Let me just see how this thing works. You can't see what I'm doing, but never mind. And yeah, I can get my finger through there, so that's fine. This disc will, you know, work fine. Let me remove it temporarily and I'll spin the wheel around, hopefully. Not a lot of room around here, so we are struggling a little bit. So bear with me. It is very, 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 very awkward. But let me try, at least try. So it's all moss and things just to my left here. So here's the caliper. I've removed the brake pads for the time being. And look at that, you know, no problem. And I think that caliper will work very well with the black calipers on the front end. So yeah, because they're black and they have silver writing on them, so hopefully that will work quite well. We've now of course got to make yet another bracket to mount this caliper to this wheel, disc and swing arm combo, but I'm pretty happy with that. I can use it because that cost me about £80, £90, so it's good that I can make some use of it. Anyway, I've done a bit more research on modifying, not really modifying, but adding a brace to this swing arm. That was something I was thinking about doing the other day, and I found a fantastic YouTube video that went through the whole process very clearly. It seems like it's workable, and sadly the guy who made it has only made one video on YouTube. Maybe he gave up, I don't know, because he actually had a workshop where he built bikes for people, and he went through the same sort of logic as me. It's like, well, how do I add a brace to an existing swing arm and not use round bar but use the aluminium box section? And he did the same thing to me, went through all his different options, and he came up with an idea. I thought, well, that is genius. It's a real pity that he's only made one video. And his idea was that you take your box section and you fill it with liquid metal. And this special metal is very low melting point metal. You can basically melt it with you know, a very light amount of heat. It melts at a very, very low temperature. So you seal off the end of the box section, you pour in your metal, it solidifies instantly, and then you can bend that box section and it doesn't buckle because it's got metal inside. When you're finished, you then warm it up with a blowtorch, and guess what? It just all runs out and you can reuse it over and over again. And the metal or alloy, I'm not sure what it is called, it's called bismuth or something like that. I'll put up the name here. It's called bismuth, and you can buy an ingot of it, like about, I don't know, half a kilo or a kilo, for about £10–15. I can also buy a metre of the box section alloy that I need for the same amount of money. It's about £20. So all that is, you know, not too bad at all. I might give it a go. It may end up just being too difficult to do and too much hassle, but I want to give it a go. Now we're talking about here actually the back end of the bike, and I've not really mentioned the front end of the bike since the last video, because I was planning perhaps on cutting off the headstock so I can make a new one which can be made to accommodate the 55mm bearings of the Z1000 RS yokes. But a lot of people say you're stupid, don't do that, that's ridiculous, no need to do that. Just take an old Z1000 stem, knock out or press out or grind out the stem on the upside down forks and then swap them over. And I've done that before and that's fine, but I was very reluctant because I do like the finish on the yokes. They're all sort of crinkle black, and I figured it might be quite difficult to replicate that if we start damaging it to change over the stem. And yet I've had to admit that modifying the frame, you know, cutting off the headstock and changing it might be a bit of a stupid idea. So instead I will have to go back and modify those yokes to take an older stem. The good news is I've been told that the stem in the Z1000 RS isn't welded in, it's just pressed in. So hopefully we can press it out without damaging the finish too much, but we'll see. And so today I'll be going to see Jeff and taking this swing arm with me so we can make a start on modifying it to fit the frame. That means knocking out the bearings. Oh, and by the way, I've ordered new bearings and they cost more than the bloody swing arm cost me, but there you go. We'll then take off 5mm off each side of the pivot area of swing arm, and that will hopefully allow this swing arm to fit the old Z1000A1 frame. But I've got a suspicion it might need a bit more than that. It might need, you know, another 1 or 2mm off each side to take account of the dust covers as well. But we'll start off with 5mm each side, try it out, and when I know it's not quite right, take it back and take off a bit more, because you don't take off too much on the first cut. And now I'm just back from seeing Jeff in his workshop, where I dropped off the wheel and swing arm for him to modify. So we went through what's got to happen, he knows what's got to do, and we'll leave it to him, and hopefully it'll be done in a few days' time. So I can't really do much else. And typically when I got home, this box that arrived in the box was this, and this is the stem and lower yoke from an old Kawasaki Z1000A1. Now I need this, of course, just for the stem, because this is the stem I need to use on the new Z900 RS yokes to make sure those yokes and the whole front end can fit my Z1000A1 frame. Now, back in the day, these stems were, I believe, pressed and welded into place, so it's a bit of weld around there that you've got to grind off, and then you can press the stem out of this old rusty yoke. I won't be keeping the yoke, by the way, I just need it for this stem. I know it's all rusty, but it doesn't matter because all that will be changed. And as I've already mentioned, I was concerned that I've got to do the same thing with the new stem in the new front end, the new USD front end, and I'd ruin the finish. But I've been told that currently Kawasaki's are not welded as they used to be, and you can just press them out. So we'll see. Hopefully that's the case, and we can get the old stem out of the lower yoke without damaging the rather nice finish on those yokes. So yeah, this pity arrived about an hour after I left to go and see Jeff. Right, so that's it for this week. Lots of things going on, but I can't really show you much. It's all sort of that's being ordered, that's in progress, but nothing's actually done yet. And that's also the case actually for my other projects. A lot's going on at the moment with the Mark II project, the 1400cc Kawasaki Z1000 Mark II, which I've not really done much with recently. I've been waiting for the engine to be completed, and we've had a bit of a change of plan with that project, and now suddenly lots of things are happening. But that will be a different video, which I'm about to start making today. So yeah, that's it for the time being, and hopefully in part 4 of this particular build thread we'll have a lot more to show you, a lot more done, and hopefully we can start to see things happening. So anyway, thanks for watching and cheers.